What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to another video. In this one, we'll be discussing the Axela's ground clearance here in Kenya, whether it's something that you should consider and how it's affected me, given that I've had this car for around 4 to 5 months now, and how you can also get around it. So without wasting any more time, let us begin. So first things first, the Axela does have a low ground clearance. Let's not lie to each other. Has that been a major issue for me? I'd say no, but it has been an issue at some times. So what has exactly happened? When I first got the car, I did scrape it a bit, the bumper as well as the lower plastic sump guard. So by default, this car comes with a plastic sump guard just from the factory, and I have not changed it. So I have scraped that around 2 to 3 times when I initially got the car. So just a heads up, if you've never driven an Axela, when you initially get it, you will scrape it. Just know. So the best thing that you can do for that is be as slow as possible as you get used to the car, but just prepare yourself mentally that the first few weeks will be a bit tough. So in my experience, the first day I got the car, I did damage the bumper, as I think I've told you guys in another video, but I'll just make a dedicated video just discussing that. But yeah, I did damage the bumper and it had to be repaired and repainted. And aside from that, I had to take the car for inspection to NTSA, because initially the logbook was reading petrol and this is a diesel car, so I had to take it to be re-inspected for that change to be made to the logbook. And while I was at NTSA, when I parked the car, I did just scrap the bonnet, the bumper bit, and they also have a steep ramp where when you're taking the car for inspection, the car has to go over that. So also there, the plastic sump guard was also scratched. It was damaged a bit and I had to have it repaired. But those are the two main instances that I can vividly remember where I scraped that plastic sump guard. Aside from that, largely, thankfully for me, where I live, the road isn't that bad. I live in Athi River, if you're in Kenya, and I work in Upper Hill. So my commute is Athi River, Mombasa Road, all the way to Upper Hill and back. And also, when I do my errands on a weekend, I tend to use just the major highways. So we'll discuss how to live with the low ground clearance a bit later. But for now, how it's impacted me, I do limit my route. I won't lie. I just can't go anywhere, if I'm being honest, because again, this is not an off-road car. It does have a bit of a low ground clearance, so you need to be careful if you're driving it. The other key thing to note is, before you get this car, or if you've just gotten the car, I really hope that you analyzed where you live, because that's a very important thing, because not all roads are made equal in Kenya. There's some places that do have nice roads, and I'm fortunate enough to have a road that doesn't have the worst roads. But if you live in an estate, let's say like interior of Kitengela, where at some point you'll just branch off the main road onto a dusty, rough road, then please just don't bother getting an Axela. So whenever you're buying a car, it has to fit with your lifestyle, especially here in Kenya, where, again, as I've said, we don't have the luxury of having nice cars, not nice cars, but nice roads everywhere. So this is a matter of concern, especially when you're picking the car. Now, that being said, how have I managed to survive? So number one, planning my route. There's some routes I don't take, honestly, and I have friends who I just tell that honestly I can't come directly to your house. Maybe I park somewhere just to avoid those really bad roads that they will definitely damage your car, because again, this car, the ground clearance is not the best. Aside from planning my route, number two, whenever I get to bumps, I just take my time and go slowly. Thankfully, this car isn't that low, so I haven't had to do the diagonal approach. But especially if you're carrying people, just go slowly, and you might need to do a diagonal approach for some bumps. So if I'm going to a new place and I don't know that route and I see a really bad looking bump, I will do the diagonal approach. But mostly this car, it's not that bad, especially if you don't carry a lot of people. Which brings me to the third thing: avoid overloading. if you want to be carrying 5 people in this car, I'm telling you just for a fact that you will be scrapping quite often. And whenever I've carried like 4 people and I go over the same bump that I go over when I'm alone, the car just does tend to scratch. So the load definitely affects, and it plays a part in just reducing that clearance. So avoid overloading, and if you're overloading, just be extra special. Now, what can you do to counter this low ground clearance? Well, if it's a real issue for you, you can get coilovers and spacers. Now for this, you need to contact a mechanic and they can advise you on the best one for your specific needs. But personally for me, I have not done either of those. There were some mechanics who did advise me to do that, and there's another Axela I've seen that does have spacers, and honestly I just don't like the look, because it raises the car up and it just removes that slickness. So I think it's a trade-off. Do you want the car looking slick and just gliding along the road, or do you want practicality? And I'd argue, if you want that practicality, just go for another car, honestly, if it's a real issue. But if you already have the Axela and let's say you needed to move, or you just need to go now to a new route that is quite having those deep potholes and just a bad road, then definitely go for the coilovers and spacers. So for me, also another thing that I've forgotten to mention is you can also go for the metallic sump guard. That also tends to protect the car quite well, especially if you do live in a place that has those bad roads. But again, for me, as I've said, the road isn't that bad. I haven't changed anything in terms of the suspension as well as the plastic sump guard. That are the ones that I'm still using. For the bumper, I am planning on repainting the bumper, just because the place I went to have the bumper repaired, initially they didn't do such a good job, so it has collected a few scratches here and there. But nowadays I'm super careful, and given that I use a strict route for most of my commute, and over the weekends I'm quite careful where I go, yeah, it's not so bad. So if you're not a planner, if you don't want all the stress of avoiding some roads, and you can just go everywhere, get the spacers and the coilovers. But if again your route allows, like me, it's not so rough, sometimes I'm even using the expressway, yeah, you can just stay with the car as is. And another thing I forgot to mention, also overlapping. Unfortunately, if you love overlapping, then an Axela is not for you. I usually don't like interacting with those guys, because I do feel that their driving style is dangerous to other road users, and also to some extent I can't overlap even if I wanted to, just given that this car is quite low. So going next to the road on those steep inclines or what, no, this is not the car for doing those things. So long story short, yes, this car does have a low ground clearance. Can you live with it here in Kenya? Yes, by all means you can, but you just need to adopt your driving style by approaching bumps slowly, going diagonally if you need, and avoiding overloading. And worst case scenario is you might need to get spacers or coilovers if the situation is really bad. If your roads are just horrible and you haven't gotten this car, just go for another car that has slightly better ground clearance, because again, the car should complement your lifestyle and not make your life harder. It should make things easier. So as much as you might want the Axela, but the place you live doesn't allow, just tough luck, just go for another car. So I'd love to hear your experiences with the Axela if you do own it, and other tips that you might have for people who are suffering from this low ground clearance issue. But for now, thank you so much for watching. We'll come to the end of the video. Be sure to like and subscribe. I'm dropping a video every week, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.